semdol kake mo faseda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I'm your host, Matterall, and today I have with me Carneros.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here.
And Elise Randolph.
Hey, how's it going?
Elise, we missed you last week. I got so much heat for that show from Northern players that were like, "Where's Elise? Where's Elise?" So we're glad you're back. We'll pick that up what happened last time in a little bit. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I was listening to the show as it was like an hour delayed, and I was like, "Oh, geez, I wish I could have been there."
Yeah, right. So some counterweight would have helped. Okay, and I want to introduce to you a new member of Talking in Stations. He is an abyssal space expert, and his name is Fan Sui.
Good day, everybody.
He is from Signal Cartel, right?
Indeed, I am. Very gladly.
Yeah, great place, great people. And lurking about is Ash Dorothy, and he'll pop in and out. How you doing, Ash?
No talking in local.
Yeah, it's very mysterious.
He's cloaked.
All right. Well, let's get started. And since we want to spend the majority of the time on the invasion expansion, and we want to go through some of the changes that are headed your way this Tuesday. But before we get to that, let's do some player news with what's going on in Tribute as well as what's going on in the South.
That was a lot of fun. I'm having fun in Tribute so far.
Oh, can you tell us like what your progress is on the Imperium side?
Well, we've been running around mostly unopposed, or the opposition is actually, there is opposition, but the opposition is in Delve or somewhere else, hitting other things, like the two ships are passing in the night type of thing. But we've been running around hitting iHubs and jammers and reinforcing upwell structures of various sorts. A couple times, we had some actual combat action, although more often with Snuff than with Northern Coalition or any of the PanFam folks, which is, interesting.
Man.
Snuff are a wild card. Never forget that. Don't assume you know what they're doing.
So, funny story, when Snuff broke off of the Imperium officially, which was a few months ago, I was surprised to see that Penif Smash, former PL guy, actually before that he was a former Goon Swarm guy, I think, lethal fleet commander, usually known for ambushing, joined up with Snuff. And I thought,
he is probably the least Snuff member of Snuff. Keep that in mind. He's got a Snuff tag on him, but he doesn't behave like all the rest of Snuff. He does his own thing in his own place, although he does sometimes also join up with them.
Has he always been like that, Elise?
I think for the last few years, he's been like, hey, I have hit the pinnacle of what I want to do in EVE. I know exactly what it is that I like, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to be in a place where I can do what it is that I want. And like you said, he sets up, I'd say he's probably EVE's best fisherman, right? So he catches the whales, he sets up bait for people. He puts in like hundreds of hours just for like a big gank or something like that. Like he puts in all the work himself. He knows what it is that he likes to do. And that's just his play style.
And so when I said like, oh, he's joined Snuff, I don't know if it was you, but I'm going to say it was you, even if it wasn't. He said, yeah, I never thought I'd see him in Goon Swarm. And I thought, well, Snuff isn't Goon Swarm. They broke off. And then he said, well, I thought that was a meme. And I was like, no, it's a real thing. They actually broke off. But I'll tell you what, then they rejoined in a sense because they were using initiative to attack something that Test was defending, that Keepstar. And I just don't know about Snuff. Like, are they against the Imperium? Are they with the Imperium? Because their lead FC is showing up on the meta show every once in a while. So it just feels like there's still a bond there.
I think that's exactly what they want, though. I think they want people to be like, well, are they? Aren't they? What are they going to do? Like, you see them like dunking on Goon Supers in Delve. Snuff killed, I think, the first Goon Super in 2 years under the Delve Super Cap umbrella. Like, they're the first Titan in a few years under the Super Cap umbrella. Like, they've always been skirting around a little bit. So, but they work with initiatives. Sometimes they don't. Like, that's just their thing. They want to keep you guessing, which is in EVE Online, when everyone craves like perfect knowledge of what's going on. Like every FC wants perfect knowledge. Every alliance leader wants to know what's going on. It's pretty good to have that chaos working on your side.
Yeah. So speaking of whaling, you said that PNIF Smash from now Snuff is one of the best whalers in the game. There was a whaler video that came out, and people seem to really enjoy it. Does anybody watch that? It's like 30 minutes long, which is...
It's super good. You should definitely watch it. I was reading like a bunch of the comments, and people were like, "Oh, geez, I like Olmeca now." Like.
Yeah, he won over.
Like, he's not just a shitty Gurgoon poster. We like what he does now. We're happy with him. So you should definitely give it a shot. Give it a watch. It's really fun. I find it entertaining, at least.
Yeah, I watched part of it, but it's funny to see that kind of gameplay. He constantly had a bunch of clients up, right?
What he does is actually insane. Like, it's absolutely madness to see how effective he is. He like, basically, for people that don't know, he basically just lives in delves and harasses goons, and that's what he does. So he's got like a bunch of clients running. He knows where the bad guys are going to be. If you're in a Rorqual and you're not paying attention, he's going to boost your executors away and take them, and then sell them back to you. Like, he's just that type of dude.
Yeah.
Any means of dropping on you or making your life more miserable and making a profit from it, he will definitely do. And it is really, really fun to see him do it.
Yeah, he's running for CSM, so this is a good time for him to get a lot of publicity.
Yeah, the CSM race is going to be really hard for people to sneak in. So,
oh my God, we'll talk about that in just a minute. It's going to be a super competitive race. But let's go back to Tribute, Carneros. So you guys also put down a Keepstar, right? Did you mention that?
Yeah, if you do catch the meta show, there was a fun story told where Tuzzy was a guest, one of the leaders of Goonswarm Offensive Logistics, GSOL, and he was the guy who dropped the Keepstar. Now, it takes a certain level of testicular fortitude to pilot a Titan in hostile space right next to an NC dot Fortizar on grid with it, and warp your freighter to a spot and drop this really quickly. And just as he finishes warping in, a hostile stealth bomber decloaks next to him, and he's quickly clicking to drop the structure as fast as he can, because he knows that stealth bomber could technically stop him and stop the whole thing right here and kill him.
Could kill him and the thing he's carrying inside, right?
He doesn't care about his freighter. All he cares about is his payload, the Keepstar. So, he quickly got it up, but he trained for, over and over again on Singularity to get it down to under 7 seconds to drop a Keepstar and get it going. So that, in that case, it worked in his favor. But, part of the success of these operations is planning and knowing what you're going to do and getting it down right and just executing. So,
Actually, I practiced dropping a Keepstar on the test server over and over again because I was going to deploy a few Keepstars to build up a certain thing, Sanctuary Keepstar effort, which I have abandoned. I can explain why at some other point. But while I was practicing, I was realizing that you have to do all that with a lot of stress. And you have to align it so it's facing the right way, and you have to drop it where you need it. It's not that easy, and it's super stressful. So to do it in a combat zone amazingly stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things where we put like such a high value on people who are like great PvPers who know how to take a fight like that. But there is like essentially the same level of skill required to be good at doing logistics chains and what Carnaros was talking about, like just ninja dropping a keep star casually right next to the hostile deployment zone in 7 seconds.
Yeah. Well, so that Keepstar went down, and if you don't know, we have kind of like relaxed streams that we do twice a week in the morning, just to kind of keep up with news and talk about things. And Killer B came by on, was it Tuesday, or it was Tuesday, I think. No, it was Thursday. And we actually published that episode because there was just so much information from Killer B about what's happening in Tribute and the defensive Tribute on the NC side of things. So check that out. But yeah, so what else is going on in Tribute before we go south to see what's going on with Test and Fraternity?
Well, so the new Keep Star, which is in the system KQK1 Tech 2, is actually the new staging system. We moved all of the super caps and subcaps there. It's not within jump range of the NC Dots and Pandemic Legion super cap forces. Those are in SH1 TAC 6P, but it's one midpoint away. So the two sides are only one midpoint away from each other at the moment in terms of super cap fights. So that's now a factor to think about as one's going around.
Yeah.
But other than that, they're just running around in packs doing stuff, and
I mean,
there's
you guys,
nothing exciting to stream at the moment.
are you guys going after iHubs, or are you just tearing apart like Sov right now?
Some of everything. They published an internal list of targets that are recommended. Some people are crazy and going to shoot anything, and you can't account for those crazy people. So I caught one of my guys in a solo Naglfar off shooting a random structure, and I thought, oh, come on, you guys. We gave you a whole list of targets, and you pick some other unrelated entity and go shoot. No, and alone in a nag, that was a good idea. Anyway, but
everybody's got people like that.
Yeah, we have a lot of them. I don't know why, but but no, groups are coming out, and someone will sign up for jammers, or someone will sign up for a Fortizar or a Sotillo, and they'll just go take a fleet and go run off. And yeah, it's an adventure each time, especially if you've never flown under that FC before. We got a whole bunch of new FCs trying stuff out, and they have permission to take a fleet. Good luck, guys. Speak up if you need help. Yeah, it's crazy. Some of them are chatty like Asher. Some of them are quiet and serious like Apple Pear.
Yeah. Well, so the fight goes on in Tribute, and it looks like, from what we heard the other day, that there won't be a strong defense happening. This looks like the reverse of what happened in 2016, doesn't it? The Casino War, World War B.
That's some of that feeling is there in reverse, but it's not all the way there yet. But there is a feeling that the one side is a more powerful force, and the other side is picking their opportunities wisely and being careful, and is avoiding engagements where that makes sense, and looking to take others where they think they can have an advantage.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do. Like, speaking generally, not for this exact situation, but like if there's a bigger guy pushing, like just invading, and they've got all this momentum, you don't want to feed into that momentum, right? So you take fights where you can get them. Sometimes I guess a big strategy is to go to the other side of the map and make the person bleed. This is something that's happened for a long time. I think the funniest example, and people are probably going to get mad about me saying this, but back in the day when Band of Brothers, which was like the biggest group, they lived in Delve. They did something called a max damage campaign. It was called Max. So them and Atlas just deployed north and just dropped capitals on everything. And they were like, oh, we've got all these capitals. You guys can't fight us. And what ended up happening is the people that lived in the north contracted mercenaries to go down south and shot up all their supercap assembly arrays. And they had the Bob people had to call off their Max campaign because they had to go back home because their home was burning. So there are really funny similarities between that which happened like 11, 12 years ago and this right now. It's really funny. Obviously, the people that are deploying north, the game's completely changed, right? So that they don't have to deploy back to save everyone. They can just point at the guys dying and say, why'd you die? You shouldn't have done that. But I just think it's really funny that Delve residents going north doing a max damage campaign.
Yeah, it's kind of what this is, isn't it? Like, just destroy as much as possible because they're not going to take Sov. They don't have an interest in that.
Such a role reversal.
Yeah, it's really neat, and I like to see how history kind of like doesn't necessarily exactly repeat itself, but there are like little similarities, which I find really interesting considering we live in this virtual world.
Yeah, by the way, I forgot to introduce McLeod because he's on camera. I can see now. So, hello, he's our engineer. Sorry, I would have introduced you, but I wasn't looking at the camera.
That's fine.
Okay, so
if you can see the camera and the video, just keep in mind that the good guys wear white hats and the bad guys wear black hats. That's all you need to know.
What are you trying to say?
Okay, so that's what's going on in Tribute. And in the South, there's also some stuff going on. It looks like the Winter Coalition is at war again with Legacy. And it looks like both sides have dropped citadels in each other's territory, which results in fighting over timers. So it looks like there are some action going on down there. It's not like they're standing still in the South while things happen in the North. There's a lot of activity down there, and we will talk about that this week and next week as things go on.
Yeah, the action in the South has been going on for a little bit, and it did seem they had a bit of a stalemate for a while. I can't help but laugh at the shape of the Fire Coalition South. But yeah, but now it does seem to have picked up a little bit. It does seem to be there's more fighting in earnest going on in the South than in the North. I'd say in that conflict, but.
Yeah, I cringe every time I see the map too, because it just looks, for people who can't see what we're talking about, it just looks a little either phallic or it depends on how, it could look like a bow tie, I suppose. I don't know.
I don't think it looks like a bow tie to anybody.
No, that's not what they think. Yeah, it looks like and it's bright red compared to everything else. It's like a really calm white and beige.
I can try and change that if needs be.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah,
we're enjoying it.
Anyway, so that border area that is funny looking is really where a lot of activity is happening, with Elo Knight taking on basically Pro God and Villy. So good stuff going on down there. Okay, yeah, let's get the. Thanks for drawing on the map. I was gonna say let's get the red rocket off the screen.
It's like that area. Like I mean, I can kind of like just get rid of that.
Okay. All right.
Anyway,
yeah. So the big news is really this the stuff that's going on outside of the game as part of the development path that CCP is doing. We want to talk about the invasion, and but first let's stop by with Eve Down Under that just happened this weekend, starting a couple days ago. Did you guys watch that?
Did watch some of the stream, yes.
Yeah, I watched part of it as well. Obviously, because the time zone change, I couldn't watch, or the time zone difference, I couldn't watch everything. But I tried to watch as much as I could. A lot of the presentations were really funny. I quite enjoyed CCP Antiquarian's presentation. Yeah. If you guys haven't seen it, it's like a QA art thing, and he has all these weird little insights to the people that work there instead of just a presentation on just stuff. So you can find out who owns half the DDR machines in Iceland. Spoiler alert, it's a CCP art guy.
I was very glad to have stayed up late that night and caught the broadcast live, and I got to see Hillmar really lay out some of the larger issues with the game, the stagnancy of Sov, and recognizing those issues very openly and phrasing them in his own words in such a way that shows truly that he's connected to the game, as many have said he is not. I think that he's really shown that he understands the core of the game. He understands what makes it fun. He understands what brings in more players, and that he's willing to take steps, even difficult ones, that may upset things, to right the ship.
Yeah, the Hillmar thing was very interesting. But before we get there, let's actually talk a little more about Eve Down Under and what was actually what news was made there besides the Hillmar stuff, because I actually want to take that and talk about it a little bit. But what other things can we tick off from Eve Down Under?
64-bit client open beta is coming.
Yeah,
that's big news.
And they showed the new trailer, which we have, but we'll show that when we start talking expansion. I thought poor Mimic's voice was just so weak. It was so sad. I hope she recovers from whatever that is.
She was a champ, like going up and doing a presentation even when her voice was like practically non-existent.
Yeah. And we saw Dunk Dinkle there. He's from Los Angeles, so he flew all the way over there to be a part of that. And I suppose he did it because, yeah.
Oh, it's just very cool to see the Duncan Kigali bromance take form.
Yeah, I was going to say Kigali is there. So I think Kigali is a native from Australia, and those are the number 1 and 2, I think, in Brave. So yeah, they were hanging out.
Mom
but
Bellicose was there too. Mom Bellicose did some really cool stuff, also from Brave. She actually started. There was a bit of a gaffe, I guess you would call it, where they designed the T-shirts but misspelled Sydney. They replaced them with proper spelling of Sydney, but they spelled it Sidney, which is not Sydney, Australia. But it was her idea to auction those off for charity, which was, I thought, a super good idea, because they were just going to like throw those out or something or burn them. But no, she was like, hey, why don't you just offer them for charity and do like a charity thing? And everyone was like, oh shit, that's a great idea, Mom Bellicose.
Wow. Yeah, making lemon juice or lemonade out of lemons. So here we have some video about the Duncan Kigali on screen there. I'm actually really enjoying the stream. I was a little disappointed in the audience's numbers because it was only 100 or 200, and I figured it would be much more than that, since this was. Oh, you also see Otto Bismarck on with the microphone there. I just thought there would be more people watching the stream, so I was kind of surprised. Maybe people caught it afterwards.
I think a lot of it was one of those things where you weren't really sure where you could watch it, because for all the other ones, it'd be on the CCB Twitch channel. This one was on the Eve Down Under Twitch channel. So I know a lot of people were like, hey, how are you watching this? Like, it's not on the Twitch thing. I was like, oh, it's actually on its own.
Oh, that's a really good point. You're right. It wasn't on the Eve. And why wouldn't it have been? It's interesting.
I don't know. I think that was just a mistake. Honestly, I think they were just like, mistakes made.
Yeah, wrong key used, but it was a good stream. I actually really enjoyed watching it. You saw Sort Dragon go up there too. It was neat. It was really neat. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on EDU. What's the actual channel? Is it EDU?
It's edu_live.
Yep, that's the one. Who's in the red jumpsuit? I have no idea, but he looks cool.
We'll put it in show notes so you can see it. But yeah, interesting. So announcements came out of there. But one of the things that caught everybody's imagination was hearing from Hillmar, who was kind of funny because he kept chiming in on just about everything, which couldn't have been comfortable for the devs, who would say something and then Hillmar would jump in and like extend the remarks. So I think that must have been nerve-wracking for devs, but he was there just like grabbing the mic and talking about every topic. And there was one that Fonsway talked about here where they said, what's wrong with nullsec? It's boring. And he actually talked to that subject, which was fascinating. Your guys' thoughts on that?
I actually think it's great, obviously, but I have there's a really kind of bittersweet part of it. When this went up on Reddit, people were talking about it, they were like, holy shit, he actually said the thing that we all think is true. That's great to hear. And then Jintan, who used to be so positive and bubbly and just not sad at all, or not cynical at all, comes in with hey guys, get excited when you see plans, not promises. And I just thought the transformation of Jintan after being on the CSM for 3 years, from this super bubbly person to this more skeptic and cynical person, it just shows how hard the CSM can wear on you.
Well, I think it's less a matter of promises and words versus action, and more that people have claimed that Hillmar is disconnected and doesn't get it. But I don't think that you can fake the kind of understanding that he was talking about. That came from his mind. That's not coached. He feels those things. He believes those things, or at least I certainly believe that he does after he said it.
Yeah, for sure. And we got that feeling when we did when we did the AMA with him in a brief interview. He actually does have a strong sense for what Eve should be and what Eve isn't right now. It's really good. And I think a lot of it comes down to, and obviously we have no insight, but he's been playing a lot more in the last year, 2 years. So he definitely feels hey, this game is different than I remember it. What's wrong here? What's changed?
Well, Carneros, isn't this a sign of? Isn't this a good sign that CCP was bought by another MMO company so they could focus on the MMO product they have? And here you have the CEO of, who's been trying to develop other technologies and other platforms back at CCP, playing the game, maybe playing it or maybe just focused on it. I don't know if he's playing it or not, but that just seems like a good recipe for development.
Well, he is playing the game, but in addition, he is splitting his focus between some other CCP projects. There's a small team incubating in London. Don't forget that. They have jobs posted on the career page. He's paying attention to that design and that pre-production and what's going on with that. It is still in the New Eden universe, so it has some Eve flavor and setting to it. He's paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. The Pearl Abyss is not a factor. He still has to do his business parts of his job too, and that is always going to be part of life. He doesn't get to just make games in a creative vacuum. They have to make business sense, and he has to do his business due diligence. And that might even be a little bit more complicated by the fact that headquarters is now based in London. The Great Britain is going through a bit of a transition, we might say, not to bring up politics.
Yeah,
but
Brexit.
There's things changing. I honestly don't think Pearl Abyss is worth bringing up in this context. The other games that they're working on might be, and other parts of life might be. You can tell he's doing a lot of things right in life. He's in great shape. He's in the best shape I've ever seen him in. He looks younger than when he and I last worked together, years ago. I don't know how he's doing it. I don't.
Well,
he's taking time for himself.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. He's right. I think it's very interesting what he said. And essentially, if I could paraphrase, I know Fonsway said it earlier, and maybe Elise, you can chime in, but he's saying this place is too complacent. People are too safe in nullsec. And what we need to do is make things scarier and more mysterious. And we need to make it basically harder. We need to make this game harder for these people because they figured out too much and there's too much known knowledge. Therefore, we need to move on this fast. And if we need to do it wrong, we'll do it wrong, but we're going to move on this, which I thought was bold.
Yeah, I think they're definitely making Eve like a more spooky, scary place. The whole like Triglavian type thing, like the invasion of the Triglavians, is a really neat touch. And honestly, it kind of goes to show that the planning that's gone along over the last few years, at least, or at least the last 18 months, because they're timing this whole gameplay Triglavian thing also with like their events, right? So it's the Eve Invasion World Tour. So all of that kind of like goes together, which means this has been in planning for months. It's actually kind of neat to see CCB plan kind of on a large scale like that. It's not something we're necessarily used to seeing.
It should be said that this is Hillmar's first trip to Australia on behalf of CCP that's been public. So the first time he's been to that part, and he was out partying with a bunch of people. I think he even got thrown out of a bar because he was too rowdy, which, it's not my thing, but I like to see that he has that kind of spirit, right? He understands that they're all in it together, including him. So,
and he definitely knows his people, right? Like that's the thing. The Eve Australian group is definitely known for that.
People need to remember Vikings, right?
The community of an MMO is like being in a relationship, and Hillmar's been in this relationship for 16 years. Yes, he does understand who we are as a community.
Yeah. So anyway, that's interesting. Now, what that said to me, let's just cut right to it. It says to me that people are gravitating towards the blue donut, or basically big groups, and it's really divided between like 2 to 4 groups only. And if that's all the gameplay is, then this place is incredibly small and doomed, in my opinion. And I'm not being dark about it. I think like when the game starts to feel small, you become less immersed in it. It's like when you go to a high school or a university, when you first get there, the place is gigantic and mysterious and exciting. And by the time you're graduating, it's like, yeah, that's just that. It's all done. You've kind of ruled the place, and you know what it's like, and it's a completely different feeling. So for EVE Online, a virtual world that can be as big as really your imagination, you need to keep it mysterious and dark as long as possible. So what's happened is that nullsec is kind of the news that you're seeing, the way it's talked about from all corners. The way it's actually perceived is that it's all kind of figured out, and you see basically one group walking over another in the north. It's a little more interesting in the south. The thing about the invasion of Tribute and Goonswarm having all those pilots now with that many Titans and big hardware, it just doesn't feel very exciting. Of course, for NC, it doesn't feel exciting, which I'm a part of, but I don't think it's exciting from my other perspective, which is just as an observer of the game.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but at the same time, you have to have a sense of appreciation for what Goonswarm and the Imperium have created, right? It's not something that's easy to do. You have this gigantic social structure, so much organization, so much everything just worked in there. Like it's a machine that runs. It's incredibly large in its size and it's what it can do. It's a really impressive feat. You can argue that, hey, maybe the game shouldn't have pushed the complexity creep so hard where these groups all want to merge together. But at the same time, you do have to take a sit back and say, hey, the fact that someone's been able to make this structure in a video game is actually very, very impressive.
Yeah. Let me bring Ashtarothi in here if you want to comment on Hillmar's comments at all.
Oh, I think that it... I mean, about Hillmar's comments specifically, I think that it was good for him to voice that, because the narrative that CCP, in particular the upper echelons of the company, not getting what the player base values, has become increasingly more of a solid narrative, if that makes sense. So the fact that he was able to speak directly to it and in a way that makes people say, no, wait, he at least gets what's important So hopefully that says something about the future decisions. Is a huge thing. So I'm really appreciative that he did so.
And I just wanted to say one more thing about the Hillmar thing, because I thought it was great, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the fact that, again, with Jintan's like, calm down, like, don't get too hyped point was wait until you see actions. But because, like, just the day before, we got word that the exploration is getting changed in a very big way, which I know Ashrathi has some feelings on, but you'll be able to see anomalies and signatures basically through the agency window, no matter where. Like, so you can see within one jump, you can see the exact site that's around there. 2 jumps or further, you can only see like the existence of a site. But that does mean if you're just chilling, you can have the agency window open. If you see a wormhole pop up, or a wormhole type thing pop up in your constellation, you can be like, oh shit, maybe bad guys are coming. So
a small correction to that. You can see anomalies within your system and the next system over. Signatures will still always have to be scanned down to know exactly what they are.
All right, we're going to table that discussion because we want to get deep into that. That's an interesting thing when we get to the invasion expansion. But wrapping up on Eve Down Under, we have the CSM candidates were announced as well. And there are 42 or 44?
44.
Of which I am one. But there are also a lot of other good ones in there. The thing is, the reality is, and I've talked to several people about this, which is something I do all the time, try to figure out from different people's perspective what's going on. And in doing so, I realized that really 8 out of 10 seats are just booked up by nullsec players. And it strikes me as odd, and I've had a conversation with somebody about this. It's hard to say it's hard to tell people not to vote for their team, right? They want to do their bit. They want to be loyal and do what they're supposed to do for their group. But the CSM is supposed to be a player group, not a partisan alliance group. Yet all the representation is powered by loyalty to an alliance, not any kind of campaigning that players do.
I think there is the problem with the CSM elections, as you've like pointed out, is the groups in EVE Online very strongly value the CSM. Like, they think it's a good institution and it's valuable. The players don't necessarily share that same viewpoint. So the people voting don't really care about the CSM. They just want their guys to win, as you put it. Wherein if they like cared a little bit more about the CSM or had a little bit more knowledge about what it did, maybe they'd be like, hey, I don't necessarily have to vote on my my ticket because no one's going to know anyways. Maybe I could vote for this guy that I like. And people do that. Like, there are a non-insignificant amount of people who don't vote the party lines or whatever, right? They just vote for whoever they want. But there are a huge amount of people who are just like, oh, it's the CSM thing. Oh, I have to vote this way. Okay, easy. My guy wins. Woohoo, I can celebrate.
We won.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a microcosm of EVE. You want to win. You don't necessarily care about like.
You don't care what it is.
Yeah, you just know that you want that W.
Yeah. Well, that's a weird problem, I think, just as a spectator. Not only because this is going to affect me, I don't have a coalition necessarily to run in. I'm not what you would consider a traditional nullsec player. All the stuff that I'm talking about isn't really nullsec oriented. It's more about different things. But it's very strange that there are really only 2 spots open for any kind of miscellaneous. And one of those spots is taken by the very capable Steve that everybody likes. And he's more of a technical person. But he's a third-party builder, and people like the applications that he gives for free. So it's very, very interesting to me that it seems very broken. I know I have a vested interest to say that, but I just see it as an analyst that the system seems kind of broken for what its purpose is supposed to be, because now it's become, for alliances, a reward for your guys. So if Killer B wants to run for NC, Vince is going to say, Killer B's our guy. So he gets on the ticket. And if that's enough to get him in, he's in. On the other
I'm not
side
sure
of it,
broken's the right word, though. Broken says it's not functioning. I think
you're
it's
right.
a little unfair, but I think it is functioning. I think it's functioning pretty well, actually, compared. Looking at, we have 13 of them to compare against. This is on the functional side of the spectrum of the 13 we've seen so far.
I know that Hillmar even pointed to the effectiveness of CSM, and you can see that through the minutes, which we read. You know that they all talk with one voice, and it's very, it works. The people that are in there are good, and they make it work. What I'm thinking of is that it seems like the incentive structure to get into CSM is now no longer for players at large, ad hoc players. I know it seems like a naive thing, sure. Like, yeah, if you don't belong to a coalition, you can't get in. But I think it's very interesting because what that does is make the pressure applied to CCP fairly one-sided. Okay, but maybe that's a topic we can get into another time that's very deep.
I mean, I think one of the most interesting things about the CSM, or at least the candidates, is who is not on there that we thought was going to be on there, and who is on there that we didn't think was going to be on there, didn't know was going to be on. I think the biggest surprise for me was to see just Gobbins, and when I loaded the candidates thing, like just to the way the website works is it just randomizes the order. But for me, when I did it, it just randomized Gobbins at the very top with his little bald head facing down. I was like, Gobbins, what? And his little speech, his little bio is literally just sound the horde horn, and that's it. Like,
for those of you who don't know, Gobbins is the leader of Pandemic Horde, one of the PanFam group. So yeah, well, he's got that's a big group. So he's going to have some support.
Yeah, and Elo Knight, who by all reports was serious about running for CSM, was denied entry into the candidacy.
And Cable Uta is another name that a lot of people were kind of looking at as a dark horse guy. He's from Volta. Like he's not on. I thought he would be great. He was endorsed by Suetonia and myself, among other people. I thought he would have been great. But nope, he didn't make it on either. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how these people didn't make it on. Was it just because they didn't do the application process correctly, or they didn't apply at all and it was just a meme, or I don't know.
Indiscretions in their youth.
Yeah, that could be it too.
Yeah, there's Andres. He is a player from NC and Wormholes, I think, and he was denied as well. I think he'd had a ban in his history, but the ban got overturned. But I guess that wasn't enough to let him on the CSM. And yeah, CCP did not tell anybody why they weren't on there, either bad paperwork or discipline problems in the past. But yeah, there were people missing. There's a couple
in the white paper. It does say if you've been banned for any reason, then you're not eligible to run, right? So, I guess that's part of the thing.
So maybe the reversal doesn't take that away. You were still, I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows? I've got no idea.
Yeah, me either.
A reversal would seem to indicate that they decided that the ban was inappropriate to begin.
It could be mercy, you know. Like, yeah, in Brisk's, as Seda says here, in Brisk's case where it was seen like, okay, we misinterpreted something, so it's our fault, our bad, we're going to unban you. It seems like that's an exoneration that should allow you to run again should you want to. In fact, that was made explicit when they made the announcement. But
it's my understanding that he could, but he just didn't want to after all.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
That is right.
Yeah, exactly. But for somebody who had been banned and then unbanned, it could have been like, oh, okay, well, we'll reverse the ban, but you're not exonerated. You're still considered persona non grata. I don't know. Just thinking. Yeah. So Elo Knight didn't show, but there's a Wormhole guy that didn't get on either. But here it is, 44 people to select from and make your choices.
It's stacked too. Like it's stacked with like really, really good people, huge names as well. I know there's a little bit of worry after the Briskgate that like, oh, no one's going to want to run for CSM ever again, blah, 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 it's dead. That is absolutely not the case. I don't think I've seen a stronger group of candidates for a long time. Like this is absolutely insane with the number of people, or the quality of people, I guess.
Yeah, back to kind of my gripe. Do you see any non-PvP people in there?
You do. I think Manic Velocity is not really running on a PvP platform.
Right.
Dunk Dinkle.
Dunk Dinkle is not necessarily running on a PvP thing. Steve is there. Jurius Doctor from our show is there as well.
Yeah.
Mike Azaria, who used to be on the CSM, I think CSM 4, not really a PvP guy.
That's true. Yes, Mike. There's also Exuki, by the way. Wormholers have at least one choice. I think they have more than one, but Exuki's the one that I know the best. Also,
Dear Wormhole people, please get together under one banner. Please work together this time, guys.
It's and it seems like he's also considered one of the people fighting for that 1 or 2 spots there. So you have Exuki, you have Mike, Azariah. These are huge names, and Steve, all kind of fighting for these little spots because the big groups have kind of taken up most of the stuff. Villy is running, but he's likely to get on.
Yeah, Villy's running, and the CEO of Dreaded is also running for the legacy. So the legacy of 3 people that they are trying to shove on.
Horde has 3 as well. Yeah.
But I think Horde I'll go behind the Goblins. I think the other ones are just like independents or something that aren't necessarily on the thing. I don't know.
Who are the Russian bloc going to vote for? Who are the Russians going to vote for? There's no Russian candidate this year.
Well, Sword Dragon says that he tries to talk to them, and I think he's had support in the past, so they might help him out, which would be kind of a wild card vote.
Who's Fraternity going to vote for? Like they were all, as far as I knew, like they were all going to go for Elo. But now
exactly.
There's no Elo. Who's he gonna do?
Well, I've decided that I am. Well, I won't colorfully characterize it like Aerith does when he and I talked, but I am going to ask for as many favors as I can to get on ballots. There's just no other way to scrape it together. So, gonna do that.
There is actually a guy from Fraternity who's a CSM candidate. He's called Arrow Speed Bounty.
Okay, there you go. So we got that one frat guy.
It's true, but I don't know how high up he is. He may be. I don't know anything about him, but I'm not sure who he is. He's definitely not an appointed or anointed figure like Elo Knight might have been or something.
In terms of not knowing who people are, is this a good time to mention that Talking at Stations is going to try to do interviews with as many of these people as possible?
Please do.
Yes, we are.
Yay. I know I'm signed up to do a couple of them. I'm looking forward to seeing those drop. They're all going to be sort of 20, 30 minutes in length, one each, where it's one interviewer and one candidate alone in an interview. Stand by for those, guys.
And if you're a candidate and don't know anything about this whole, interviews by Talking in Stations sort of thing, get in touch with us. We want to do as many of the candidates as possible and get it out to the public as fast as possible. So, yeah.
Our scheduler is Artemis Albosa.
Yeah, so if you need to get your voice out there to people, we definitely will publish that. We need to get that all done 2 or 3 days before election time. Otherwise, people won't have a chance to download it and listen to it in time. So,
yeah,
do that quickly. I've recused myself from all that.
I hope Gobbins wants to do an interview. I'd love to hear Gobbins CSM thing.
Yes, we've been trying to get Gobbins for a long time, and I don't think it's any secret that he and I talk in real life since he lives in Los Angeles too. And I really like him as a person. And if he wants to do an interview, that would be an interview I would want to do anyway. So we'll see. I don't think he'll do it. He doesn't like talking in public, but we'll see. All right.
The sort of candidate that I think that would appeal to me is not necessarily one that represents the type of content that I engage in directly, but rather the one who understands the larger picture and the health of the game as a whole, and wants to bring more players. So I'm in Signal Cartel. We don't hold sovereignty. We don't engage in that part of the game, but I recognize that is a extremely critical portion of the game, and that speaks to the health of the overall player base. So even if someone isn't necessarily, well, I'm an explorer, I do PvE, we're non-aggressive, etc. Like, I don't need a candidate that represents those specific values. I need a candidate that is a good focus group member for CCP.
Can I jump on that real quick?
Yeah.
I know that Matterall won't say this about himself, so I will. The reason why I support Steve and Matterall specifically is because what they bring is who they are, right? They know things and they have this talent for things and this passion for things. It's not about positions. And that is incredibly important when it comes to choosing the CSM members. It's not about what position that you want them to advocate for, because in the end, that actually doesn't have that much influence on the CCP. It's not like your pet project is going to get chosen because you got your guy elected. But the point is that who do you want in that room? Who do you want to help them figure out what to do next and what's wrong? Like, that is incredibly important. And so you need people that have that talent, not just good ideas.
Yeah, I mean,
Also,
that's
I
a good
want
thing.
can we just stop for a second and thank Xylix Xenix for gifting 5 tier 1 subs in Twitch? Thank you,
Pretty
sir.
amazing.
He does that
Oh, damn,
every
I
week.
missed that.
Every
God
single
damn.
week he does that. What a player.
How could you miss that? It just lit up the chat. Thank you very much, ex-wife. Really appreciate that. All right.
I was too busy laughing at Astaroth's
Small
dog
child
in the background or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
That's not his dog.
That's my son.
That's his kid.
Oh no!
I'm so sorry.
He's just
It's
got him
okay.
tied up and gagged.
He's really
just kidding.
excited.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, thanks very much. Okay, so let's move on because we've got a lot to cover now. We're just halfway through, but our time is running out. Should we talk about this next expansion?
Yes, sir, we should.
All right.
I love that it's called EVE Online Invasion. So
Yeah.
we've had Incarna, Incursion, and Invasion. They all sound a little bit similar at first. Yeah.
So this drops this Tuesday, May 28th. And for a really deep analysis of this, we're going to release the day before that, Ashtarothi talking about point by point all the patch notes. So listen to that coming up in a day or two.
I put a lot of work into it, so you better listen to it.
But let's do it. Let's do our own version of that and go through it a little quicker just to get through some of the stuff. Actually, Francois, can you tell us about these invasions that are going to happen?
Actually, I can't, and that's what's so awesome about it. That is one of the most exciting things about this. There has been so little information that has been released about this. It's been in character, in game, in RP. The majority of the information that's gotten out to us. Obviously, Hobo Leaks is a thing. People read it, people are aware of it, and they see certain things. But there is so much that's being kept from us, and we are going to find it out the very difficult, very expensive, very Pod Express way. And there's a lot of expensive ships that are going to go boom. I am extremely excited for figuring this out. If they spoon-fed it to us, it would be disappointing. But they have been leading up to this forever and a day. As you said yourself, this world tour has this expansion's name on it, and both have been in the works, for quite some time now. I think that they are executing this extremely well.
So what kinds of stuff are they not telling us that they usually do?
Well, we know very little. So obviously there's some stuff that's out on Hobo Leak. So we know some of the abilities and, attributes of the structures and the rats that we're going to see, but we really don't know, when they're going to do these things or how, or the specifics or details. We don't have this min-maxed and doctrined out like incursions are. It'll eventually get to that point, but I think that it's going to take some time to get there. and that learning process is part of the enjoyment. And it's again, as you said earlier, you show up a new place and it's expansive and huge and full of wonder, and if they handed it to us, that would just be gone. So when we eventually get to that stage, we'll have gotten maximum enjoyment out of figuring it out.
And there's this one little bit when that I'm always reminded about, because I was on the CSN with Celine, who used to work at CCP, and he was also he's like a big name as well. He's the leader of PDCI. He was the leader of Mercenary Coalition back in the day, and his take on incursions when they first came out is, how great would it be if the players did nothing about incursions? They would just take over and beat us. Like, what if that type of system is there for the Triglavians? Like, what if you don't deal with them? What if they just start taking your shit and blowing it up and just making your space worthless and turning it to ash? Like, what if that's a thing? And that's something we don't actually know. Maybe that is going to happen. But the whole not knowing thing is quite great. It brings that level of spookiness back to space.
Excitement, right?
Absolutely. Not to speak for Ashtarothi, but I know that I am echoing a lot of his sentiments regarding this as well.
Yeah. To answer Matterall's question about how this normally goes, normally you would see these sites on Singularity. So we'd be able to run them, we'd be able to test them, we'd be able to know a pretty good idea of what's coming. Not only have we basically not had these sites up on Singularity at all, so we haven't been able to see anything besides like the 5 or 6 pictures I managed to snag, which was only on one gate, not even in any of the actual sites. But they've made it clear that they are keeping this a secret intentionally, and so the HoboLeaks information is even in question. They could change all that information. Everything about this is being actively concealed on a level that they have never done as long as I have been watching EVE.
And another like good side effect of this is there's going to be shit that's super fundamentally broken that the community is going to figure out and the players are going to figure out, and that's going to be really fun. Like there's going to be some really nifty ways that stuff is going to break. The reason I think about this is someone brought up diamond NPCs, and the diamond NPCs, if you haven't seen them or interacted with them, you probably shot them once and they beat you up, and then you never shot them again. But
I think that.
Oh no, you can go.
One of the things that we're going to see now is we're going to blur the line between a bug and working as intended, because we're going to die to something, and maybe CCP didn't code it the way that didn't think that it was going to react the way it does, in reality. But that doesn't mean that it's insurmountable, and we may come up with a way to overcome that. And maybe that's not what they intended, and they're not going to change it because we figured out how to work around it anyway. And this is emergent gameplay of the next level, essentially.
And that kind of brings me back to EVE like 10 years ago, where if the bug happened, the meme was like, oh, it's just an unintended feature. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, Vitus wrote undocumented feature.
Yeah, there you go.
As long as we're able to get past it in a controllable manner, as long as we're able to buffer for it in our fleet compositions, in our tactics, in our strategies, if it is able to be done in a systematic manner, no matter how much ISK it takes to learn that and to develop that, then there is no need to change it.
Right. So a lot of mystery in this one, and we like that. But what do we know? Let me go through a couple things here, and you guys can stop me if you want to talk about something. But you're going to have these system-wide effects as the abyssal, the abyssal guys inside the systems that you go into are actually coming out into known space, but only known space in high sec to start. And we understand this is a stage 1, so it may actually get staged out into bigger and better things. But you're going to have roaming fleets then in these systems that have system-wide effects. And it is said by CCP that these are vanguard fleets for something bigger. So we know that it's going to be growing. And then there's a lot of, is there anything about that you guys want to talk about? Like the actual PvE gameplay?
I assume it's going to be very similar to what the Triglavians are right now. So you can sort of game it a little bit if you cheese it. but it does feel way more interesting than current incursions, because the way incursions go, like, oh, you got to hit this trigger, then you hit that trigger, blah 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 blah. That doesn't work with the Triglavians so much.
There are certain abilities that we know that Triglavians have. We know that they do explosive and thermal damage, so we can assume that we're going to see explosive and thermal damage in these sites, unless we have some other friends that the Triglavians bring with them. But I believe these may very well be pure Triglavian fleets. We're also going to see new versions of all the rats. We're going to see additional rats that didn't exist before. There were no Kikimoras, there were no Drekovacs, there were no Ikitursas, there were no Nurgles. All of these things are new, and they're going to be attacking us. We have very little idea what they're going to be able to do to us. We have seen, on Hobo Leaks that there's going to be smart bombs of some sort. We've seen that the weather effects are going to impact. They're going to negatively impact drone usage. We've also seen that the weather effects are going to positively impact mining, which essentially means that we're going to have multi-pronged fleets. We're going to have, we're going to go in and keep these rats busy. You guys go in and grab all that ore, and we don't know what kind of ore we're going to see. It's possible that all the materials for Tech 2 production are going to come from this, and it's going to require, some of these, multi-unit fleets that spread out over a system or a constellation. And we're going to figure this all out the hard way.
Yeah, so a few things. First of all, invasions and incursions can both happen at the same time, just to answer that question.
Wow.
According to the agency. I don't know if they can interfere with each other or what would happen, but there was clearly a spot for both in the new agency.
We need to send out scouts when the first one overlaps, just so we can get good video footage and see what happens.
Yeah, that'd be actually really cool. So the weather effects, or rather the system-wide effects that were in the Triglavian invasion, were significantly different than the incursions. And as Fonsui just alluded to, it was drone damage, drone hit points, hull hit points, and speed of the ship, I believe, were the four things. But what I noted was I was in Galente space, and it was very much a Galente, anti-Galente weather. So I'm still wondering whether or not the different high-sec areas, whether or not the new high-sec areas, or each high-sec area will have different effects. So far, we haven't seen that evidence in Hobo Leaks, but it does seem to possibly play out. The other thing is that the most important thing is that the ships themselves are going to have the same rough names as the ships in the Abyss. So they're going to be renewing and starving and ghosting, and so they're bringing all that E-War with them. So it's pretty much going to be a lot like the Abyss-style encounters, but in Tranquil, or in known space, basically.
So as you mentioned, Ash, the invasions and incursions can happen at the same time in the same place, and we know that they are not friends. I am very interested to see if those two pieces of content will interact with each other without us being involved, or we could choose to take out one and leave the other up. Game it this way or game it that way. It's possible they won't interact at all, but again, we don't know.
Well, let me do a quick interruption. This is not something we usually do, but we're just getting hammered with donations. So I want to thank everybody that's, and it's generous donations. They're not subscribing for themselves. They're just subscribing for other people. And it's amazing to see that. It's really just showering. It's not usual for this show. Super appreciate it. Let me call out some names here. Shiro, Apollo 428, Midnight Space Monkey. We got a follow from CCP Signal. Midnight Space Cowboy again. Shiro Hoffmax. Oh yeah, Space Monkey.
Well, really, Xylix really set this off. It seems he's an absolute legend. But Xylix, Apollo, Hoffman, Midnight Space Monkey. You guys are legends. Thank you.
Sorry to gush, but man, that's really nice to see you guys sharing the channel like that. Well, at this point, I should also say we have a Patreon. That's Patreon/Matterall. Check that out for Talking In Stations as well. And always check out our stuff at talkinginstations.com, where you can get access to all the old channels. So might as well put all that in there. Thank you guys for the donations. Super generous. I don't even know what to do with it. I'm so busy typing. Let's get back to Triglavians and this next expansion. Another part of this expansion that's interesting to me is that essentially it's a new race now, right? Because they have a new industrial path, new skills for industry, new data cores, new components to build Tech 2 stuff with. I mean, it really feels like they're breaking off Triglavian or precursor stuff into its own race, more or less, as far as industry is concerned.
Yes, it has its own proper. Not only is it getting more of a fleshed out ship line, but you're right. The actual process of building and collecting these ships are becoming more fleshed out like a normal race. One of the things I do like is that because now we have 4 Tech 2 ships, each one of the Tech 2 ships is actually associated with one of the main races. And you can see that race's like influence on the original Triglavian Tech 1 designs on each of the ships.
So that will be interesting. And also new mutagens. So you will see stuff for damage control units, which I think should be popular. Assault damage control units, ancillary shield boosters. And oh my God, you guys are killing me with all the donations. Thank you, Tiebreak. Ancillary shield boosters, ancillary armor repairs. What do you guys have on those?
Interestingly enough, the ancillary shield booster and ancillary armor repair mutaplasmids have made 2 appearances previously. The more recent one was the Abyss event in the middle of last year, shortly after the release. They were given as a reward for the event, not by drops, and they were limited, and no one ever said that they were going to be back again. So they've actually been selling quite high, and those prices are going to drop now since they're becoming permanent items. And those items themselves, the ancillary mutaplasmids, actually had a different name at the very beginning. I'm not sure they were ever released. I know they existed on CC. I'm not sure they made it onto Tranquility, but they were created and removed, and they had a different name. I forgot what they were called, but they were not unstable, they were not gravid, and they were not decayed. But these have been, the ancillary mutaplasmids have been on CCP's list since before Abyss came out, and only now are they finally making it permanent. So that's actually very exciting.
Anyone else on the new mutagens?
Man, I'm going to roll so many broken things. I can't wait. I've got this giant container just full of things that I bricked. And I might need a second container because it's just fun to do, right? Like, you just roll the dice, see what happens. Sometimes you get an OP mod, sometimes you don't. And I really like the idea of doing it for the ASBs and the ancillary armor repairs, because there aren't swagged out versions of those yet, and that's kind of been lacking in the gameplay.
Real quick, Carneros, can you tell us, because we did this live, you rolled a mutagen. Can you tell us what that process is for people who don't know?
Yeah, well, that was fun. We probably have the video clip somewhere too. You just basically, there's a window that comes up, and you drag your mutagen in, and you drag your initial starting object in. You can only do it once. You can't reverse it. You live with what you live with, and you press a button, and it chugs for a second, and you get a little excitement, and then it comes back and surprise, here are your new statistics. And they may be good and they might be bad. They're not likely to be great. They're likely to be some mixture of good and bad.
I hate to be pedantic. But we should call them mutaplasmids because that's what they are.
I'm thinking of a different game.
Yeah, and secondly,
oops.
As you described, it may be good, it may be bad, but that's the reason why I do all of my rolls only one way. No fewer than 10 at a time, and I cover the screen and keep clicking until they're all gone, and then I look at the results afterward.
Oh no, what you gotta do,
nice.
and this is the proper way to do it, the proper endorsed PO way is you do it, and then you see because it goes stat by stat, so it doesn't show all at once if you've never rolled a mod. It just shows the first stat, the second stat, the third stat. So you can see like green, and you're like, oh my God, it's going to be good. And then it goes red. And then you have to just throw it away because it's
Yeah.
Yeah, for anyone who's unfamiliar, the 3 levels of mutaplasma, the 3 qualities are decayed, gravid, and unstable. Decayed is the worst, unstable is the strongest, and they have similar properties in that they have a greater chance of damaging an individual stat than helping it. The unstable has a wider range, and the gravid mutaplasmid is more balanced and more likely, or rather less likely, to create a brick, but obviously has a lower top end.
So basically, just get unstables for everything, and then live on the
essentially edge. If you want that awesome, if you want that god mod, if that's what you want, if you're going for something awesome, there's only one way to get it, and it's to use Dead Space faction module and an unstable mutaplasma.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the mutaplasma is in the way that it kind of works. Like we talked about this with I think it was Manborn and CCP Burger, right? When they were talking about it, and it was like they when they just had the stats appear, like it didn't seem as though that was that like exciting. But when they trialed it with like the the red and the green kind of like slowly going up and down, like it seemed as though it was like a lot more exciting for people, which is kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, so that's the executive producers of EVE Online. They were talking about the development of mutaplasmids. Mutagens, sorry, is from a different game. Can anybody guess where Mutagens is from? I'm just curious.
Off The Witcher, come on.
Yeah. That's it. I was leaving that for the audience, but you got it too quick. All right. Yeah.
It's just on it.
All right. So check out the new mutaplasmids. But here's the big news, right? You have T2 hulls for these ships, which is why I'm now considering them more of like a racial line of ships. So these T2 hulls are going to be the assault frigate, the command destroyer, and the hack.
And that's joining the
assault cruiser.
Logi as well, which we already have, the Zarmaz.
Right, and the T2 Logi already exists. Can you guys talk about these ships, maybe starting with the assault frig?
Ash, you have anything, or should I go for
it? Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, just to pitch it again, I go through all of this stuff in my 1-hour breakdown, but real quick.
Yep.
Both the assault frigate and the assault cruiser kind of have the same philosophy, which is that they take all of the advantages of the previous Tech 1 version, they slap on Tech 2 resists, they give it an ADC, and then they also make it so the ramp up can go twice as high as a normal ramp up. This doesn't actually, or almost twice as high. So this doesn't make it so that it ramps up faster. So it'll take 2 or 3 minutes before it can ramp up fully. But we're talking about a cruiser that can do 2K DPS. So this also combines with the fact that the Tech 1 frigate lost its range bonus, which actually got moved over to the assault frigate version, but did get a 4% resistance per level. So both of the frigates are going to be more tanky. The assault frigate is gaining the ADC and normal Tech 2 resists, and is going to be able to shoot that further distance in order to be able to ramp just stupid high.
And as an assault frigate, they also get... Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and as well as, being an assault frigate, it gets a reduction in signature radius penalty for micro drives as well. So,
correct. So does the cruiser.
I think that will make the assault frigate a very, very excellent choice for Fleet Abyss. And I asked and received an answer, which is, I love the fact that, the CCP devs are so involved in the... I asked and received an answer as far as why it was chosen that the bonus is a higher ramp, which will, by the way, take longer time to get to. The ramp speed is the same, and the ceiling is now higher. And I asked and received an answer, and the answer was, if we made the ramp faster instead of making the ceiling higher, that would cause these ships to become more generic, and we want them to be unique and have a unique role. The level of thought that goes into that is, that's really amazing that, they care that much and they're considering these things. And maybe a lot of people wanted that ramp to be faster, considering that, the Damavix issue and the reason why it doesn't see a lot of use is because of the ramp speed on a small weapon. But they really care and they're really trying, and there are justifications for these design decisions.
Okay. A little quicker now, the Dragoor is the command destroyer.
Yeah, so the command destroyer is just going to be disgusting because basically take everything you've ever loved about the Kiki and then add jump drive and skirmish links.
They said that I think they said that that it is also the only command destroyer that can fit. It was like a particular.
That can what? You cut off.
Particular two types. What? It can fit like particular two types of
skirmish info.
Skirmish and info. Yeah, that's the one.
No, every race has two types that they can pull from. Although I think, if I remember correctly, skirmish and info is not a combination that exists otherwise.
Yeah, that's what.
Because I think it's armor and skirmish and shield and info normally.
So you don't get the option of choosing a faction mind link implant and bonusing both. You're always going to have to choose to either bonus the skirmish side or bonus the info side.
That isn't going to matter though, because you can only bring one burst charger anyways. So you're not bringing, under normal conditions, you're only going to bring one burst charger anyways. So it doesn't. You're going to pick which one of the two that you're going with. But yeah, it is a good point.
Okay, let's move on then to the hack, the heavy assault cruiser.
It does have a proper name, but I'm just going to call it the vet hack. I think that's the name that everyone's going to
That's the name.
I gotta say, like people act like these names are difficult, but Iki Tursa is not that bad. And frankly, my biggest issue with the Iki Tursa is that people are going to be calling things Iki and Kiki, and that's going to get confusing.
My problem is that I can only make so many Monty Python references before people get really, really annoyed at me.
I want to see CCP Kadkur do another video where she pronounces all of these.
I want to know how CCP Pen pronounces it.
Would be really cool. Yeah.
The Iki Tursa is very, very interesting because it actually will be outperforming Leshaks in terms of top end damage. And we know Leshaks are used for structure bashes, and I think that we're going to start seeing cruisers used for that, except in situations where a battleship tank is required.
Elise, what are hacks usually known for? Because I think it's one of the staples of PvP, at least large fleet stuff. But can you tell us a little bit about the history of hacks and stuff like that?
So if we want to go in the way, way back machine, everyone was basically flying battleships, remote repair battleships and stuff like that. And then some Russian guys came up with the idea of, hey, instead of tanking with armor and resists, we can tank with signature, because there are these ships called hacks that are really small. You can throw an afterburner on them, and then the big battleship weapons don't actually hit you anymore. And then that took over as a staple of EVE PvP for felt like half a decade, right? And then people finally figured out that, you can use webs and paints. Oh, geez. But then they kind of fell out of favor because these other more tanky battleships with longer ranges, bigger engagement envelopes became like the thing that everyone wanted, and the hack kind of fell off. But now, after the addition of the ADC, which increases your tank, or it adds a bit of a skill cap for using them, makes you very, very tanky for a short amount of time.
Tell us what the ADC is, please.
It essentially boosts your resists up for a short amount of time with a really long cooldown between it, right? So you push it while you're getting shot. Yeah,
for only assault
damage controls.
Well, it also gives you passive resistance at all times, and it goes in the low slot, which is very unique because you can get shield resists in your low slot if you put an ADCU in.
Yeah, so it makes you super tanky when you push this button, right? So you're getting shot or you're about to get shot, you push the button, you don't necessarily explode, and then you can either run away or it just buys you some more time. So that kind of made these ships a little bit more viable in PvP, the ones with the longer ranges. People use Zealots occasionally. Eagles, Munins, probably the most common, but Eagles are also used quite a lot. These things with really long engagement envelopes. Then you've got ships like the Ishtar, which is occasionally used. People like Asher really like the Ishtar. He's always liked the Ishtar, but he likes it even more now that it's got the ADC. And There you go. So you get a really good skirmish doctrine out of it. There are some ships where it doesn't really work too well. The Demos doesn't work for fleet combat, but it never really did. So people generally use that more for solo stuff because it already has a super good tank to begin with, and then you give this short second of invulnerability as well. So the ADC, the stealth damage control, really brought armor hacks back into the meta, at least a little bit. They're not dominant, they're not overwhelmingly dominant, but they are quite strong. And shoving this on a vet hack with its agility that already is there, its nimbleness, and it's just amount of damage, it's going to be insane. A lot of wormhole groups, I suspect, will be using this to kill like Rorquals and Thanatoses and Ratting Hells and stuff like that. And it's also going to be probably a little bit broken in the Abyssal PvP rooms because there's like, I don't think there's a single other ship that can contend with it.
Now, the reason I asked you to explain that, I used to hear AHAC a lot, and I kept looking up AHAC. I can't find that ship. I can't find that even class of ship for a long time. So that's why I need you to explain it for people who might be lost but don't know what hacks are, and I'm glad you explained that. Real quick, though, what's the difference between, historically, the difference between AHACs or armor hacks and shield hacks?
So it's kind of just a little bit of how the meta worked. Shield hacks were essentially just hyper sniper fit ships that were just completely glass cannons. You wouldn't brawl at all. You'd set at like 100, 150 kilometers, pick off some guys, and then when they started shooting you back or got within range, you'd run away. So that was one use of them. That was essentially the first use of them. And then when people realized that, hey, we can make these have a small signature tank with them, then that's when people started tanking them up, shoving an afterburner on them and brawling them.
All right, Fonsway, back to you. This new hack, the Ikatursa. I said that right? Indeed. McLeod? In your face, McLeod.
In your face.
Making fun of the way I say things all the time.
You'll slip up eventually.
Tell us about that.
Ikatursa, just as Ashtarothi said, is going to be very, very powerful in the Abyssal Proving Grounds. This thing is going to dominate. It's not going to be cheap. People are going to fit it with bling. They're going to fit it with Abyss rolled bling, and they're going to lose them, and it's going to be expensive. But on the whole, flown correctly and fit correctly, these things are going to be the pinnacle. There is no doubt in my mind.
It's been a little bit since I've done the Proving Grounds, but the last time I did, there was kind of like a meta going around where it was a bit of rock, paper, scissors. You'd either have a Vedmak, an Eagle, like just a passive fit Eagle, and a Curse or a Pilgrim or something like that. And they all kind of would beat each other up, and they'd all essentially feast on Gilas that took the gate trying to make a quick buck. What's the meta like now in the Abyssal Proving Grounds?
You're going to find a lot of Vagabonds. You're going to find a lot of Orthrus. You're going to see a lot of Vedmak. Those are three of the very common ships you can see. There's actually, maybe you can pull it up on screen. There's, I think it's abyssaldata.com that actually tracks. Yeah, there you go. Well, you can see what people are really flying in there. Some people are flying Cerberus. Some people are mistakenly flying Gilas, which is, I think, unwise. Yeah, so there's on screen, there's the Abyssal leaderboard. So you can click on each of those individuals and you can see, what they've been flying and what they've been killing.
Yeah, Sniper Bro is a guy that's kind of definitely always been dominating. And I know he was really big into using the Curse for quite some time.
Curse is very common.
And, the Curse, especially in the Abyssal Proving Grounds, has this super high skill cap. And I'm not sure if it was him or it was someone else that was saying the Ved hack is going to kind of break that meta a little bit because it can fit a battery and an injector, or even two batteries and an injector, and kind of just be immune.
Yeah, and it's still going to be pricey. So you're going to only see that with the players that are really investing and really rather quite serious about it.
Well, those ships are going to be rare but brutal. And you know what? Let me just reemphasize something that CCP has done historically. They let ships come out and have their time in the sun. So if you can adapt fast and get into these ships and fly them and become effective with them, you're going to have a few months of dominating other players. They don't correct these kinds of ships for a few months. So there's definitely some time to figure them out and whoop some tush.
Ass.
An interesting note regarding the assault damage control mutaplasmids. One of the stats that rolls is the activation duration, which is extremely overpowered since that is the primary function of that module. And it can be, plus or minus 20%.
Whoa.
So when you take a 16-second Shadow Serpentis assault damage control, and then you add 20% on that, that's incredibly powerful.
Real quick question from the audience. What about power creep? All this new T2 ship, it's just more power creep. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, it is in a way, but I also don't think they scale as well. Like, you're not going to see Goon Swarm take out, or the Imperium take out, like Ikatersa fleet, right? Like, you're not going to see PL or NC take, well, actually, probably will, but you're not going to see this as like mainline doctrines, right? They're more skirmishes, medium to, like, I guess, extra medium style. They're really, really good at fitting that role of hunting. They're not necessarily good for trading blows type thing. It's not really where their niche is, at least not yet. So I don't think it's going to push the power creep too far, but I do think it's going to make hunting a lot easier, especially with the cruiser, right? Because right now there are two ways that people use these ships mostly. I'd say like 70% of the uses go with people flying Kikis to hunt in nullsec, and mostly just nullsec, get people that aren't paying attention, and then people taking the Drekovics to hunt, but bigger game. So that's essentially the main use for them right now. A lot of people also use the Leshaks to just AFK grind, which is not too fancy, but it's a good way to do things.
So let's actually squeeze in some balance changes that are coming to the Triglavian ships, the Damavik, the Kikamura, the ammunition that they use. That's also in the patch notes. They're doing some rebalancing on these ships, aren't they?
Yeah, they're kind of fixing the Damavik up a little bit because they changed it. I think they changed it like 4 patches in a row, trying to find exactly what they want for the ship. And it's always been lacking in some way. I've tried to make it work personally because I just love the way it looks and I have the fancy skin for it. So it's like, I'm going to fly this. I put like 200 I put like 5 bill into it, rolling it, and it just died. It just died. Some shitty comet or something. And it wasn't even me being bad. It was just like the ship being a piece of hot garbage the way I was flying it. But they're kind of giving it a boost of power grid, which it desperately needed. And they're swapping the range bonus of the gun, which wasn't used too much, to an armor resist bonus, which makes it a little bit more tanky, gives it more of an active rep feel. So if you're doing a frigate 1v1, you can actually last while your gun ramps up to do more damage.
That's a good point.
So that's a nice thing. The slot layout is 3-3-3, so it's a little bit weak on an armor tank without that armor resist bonus. That armor resist bonus just gives you a functional extra low slot without having to pay for it with power grid. So, and you only need 1 gun for it, right? Because that's all it does. So you can maybe have some NOS in there, maybe some newts, maybe just survive a little bit longer to ramp up, which is nice.
One thing that stood out to me about all of that when going through the patch notes was the fact that all of the small weapons used to have a range bonus, which ultimately makes the range bonus useless.
Also, I wanted to point out something before Ash comes back. I wanted to point out something really interesting, and that is for people that don't understand these ships yet, they usually have just one weapon, and it does more damage over time. So you need to live longer for you to get the full effect of your weaponry, which was what the point that Elise made with making it a little more tanky lets the weapon work better.
Right, but
if you don't
point
mind,
is,
I can. Oh, sorry, Ash, please.
yeah, sorry. My point is that with both the frigate and the destroyer having a range bonus, it actually made the destroyer's range bonus less important, because if everything has a range bonus, then nothing has a range bonus. So now the T1 frigate has no range bonus, the assault frigate has a small range bonus, and then the destroyer has the big range bonus. So you now have 3 different range profiles for the same weapon system.
Francois?
Yeah, I was just going to describe the disintegrator mechanic, since you mentioned that people might not quite understand it. So, as you said, it ramps up. Each time the weapon cycles, it gains a little bit of damage until it hits a cap. That full cap takes quite some time to get to, a couple of minutes. And in the case of the new Tech 2 ships, since the rate at which it spools up has not been changed, it takes even longer to hit the cap. These weapons can miss, even though they have excellent tracking. You can still get poor hits or misses. That does not reset your ramp. But what does is an enemy going out of range. These weapons have only optimal range. Their fall-off range is 0. So if an enemy outranges you, then the weapon will disengage and your ramp will reset. So while the top-end damage is absolutely ridiculous, it is very difficult to get there, and it requires skill to maintain that range that entire time. If you get tackled off of somebody, then you just lost that entire ramp. You just lost 4 minutes of work.
Yeah, one of the biggest counters, or two of the biggest counters, I guess, are newts, which a lot of people like to do when it's kind of small 1v1s and stuff. Or tracking disruptors. Max tracking disruptors just make your life miserable. Because the ship would then have to be on top of you. That's why they're really good, and where they excel is to have small groups of people just destroying these capital ships, right? So you literally just have like a wolf packs of 7 to 10 of the Kikimoras, and you can just take down a Thanatos with a little bit of luck catching one, obviously, but you can definitely just own it. And that's what these things are really great at. And you can see from this graph how much damage these ships can do if you get it to ramp up for a certain amount of time. So imagine you have these vet hacks and you just grab like a ratting titan or just a ratting super. This thing can die before people can kind of respond in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's important to note that these ships' primary usage is PvP. These are not very good for PvE, unless it's for a structure bash. For, I guess, a fob bash, you can ring a Leshak or something like that. But really, especially in Abyss, when you have 20 minutes to get in and get out, you have 6 minutes and 40 seconds per room at the maximum. So if you're waiting for a full spool in one of these rooms, you're never going to see it. No rat's going to live that long. You're simply not going to get the benefit of these when you're bringing them to a tier 5 Abyss site. I am hoping that Nurgle will be more usable.
Yeah, it is actually really fun and slightly challenging if you try and do the co-op Abyss sites with Damovix, because they do have the remote rep bonus, so you can actually like spider tank to survive. But you're absolutely right, the damage output does become a little bit lacking. So maybe the little Nurgle will do it a little bit better.
Well, we'll report back after the expansion goes out. We'll keep on top of this with these new ships coming in and see how they're changing the landscape. Next, we want to talk about a little more on the balance. This is not Triglavian related to Triglavian. They're changing ammunition, and they announced this a few weeks ago. But what's going on with ammunition?
It's
the Tech 2 ammunition change?
Yeah.
At least, you want to take this?
Oh yeah. So basically, like right now, if you have a faction gun, like a big blaster or something, you can't really use it, even though it's like way better and it's like cool. Like if you get an officer and you get a Cormax like nutrient blaster, you're like, oh sweet, I got this super gun. Oh wait, it sucks on everything because I can't use null or void. So right now they're just going to change that to, hey, if you got a faction officer or storyline thing, just shove the T2 ammo in it. We know the T2 ammo is great. Instead of just balancing all the ammo like all over, we're just going to let you use it. It's the way it works in capital ships with capital guns. because that was like a huge thing. Like, why'd I use these faction guns if I can't use Scorch? Like, like these suck. Yeah. So they're just screw it. If you have a cool gun, you can use the T2 ammo. Makes it way better. So maybe you actually have some fun using your shiny, expensive guns.
Does this change? Go ahead, Francois. But the second question follow up is: does it change the landscape for anything in particular? But Francois, you go first.
This will not. It's not simply bling. In other words, this is not simply better than Tech 2, as many other things are. So Dead Space modules are better than Tech 2 modules, pretty much across the board. In this case, the way that your skills and the bonuses interact will make it still situational. First and foremost, Tech 2 weapons are still going to be the economical choice for maximum damage. Secondly, it is only in the case of launchers and not turrets where the storyline, faction, and officer weapons are across the board, hands down, better than Tech 2 in every single imaginable way. The guns of all sorts, all of the guns have pluses and minuses and ups and downs. All of the storyline and faction and officer weapons have better fitting characteristics. They have certain other characteristics that are going to be better than the Tech 2 and certain that are going to be worse. In addition, the Tech 2 ammo still requires the specialization skill level 1 to unlock, although that specialization skill is purely unlock if you're not using a Tech 2 gun, because it is the Tech 2 gun that benefits from the specialization skill rate of fire or damage increase. So you're not going to see that skill come into play, giving you that extra 10% damage, either through rate of fire or raw damage itself, when you're using the storyline, faction, or officer weapons. And by the way, it's storyline. Those are the three: the storyline, faction, and officer. Beginning at Meta 5, are going to receive the ability to use the Tech 2 ammo.
And one big winner here, probably the biggest winner here. Obviously, people that want to like perp out their ships win, but the Triglavian ships actually are the biggest winner because the Tech 2 guns are prohibitively expensive. In the case of a Damovic, the Tech 2 Entropic Disintegrator, which is the gun it uses, is as expensive as the hull, whereby you can actually get the faction one because the faction one drops from the Abyss pre-made already.
Not anymore.
Oh, well, they used to. So now they're like
they're going
cheap.
to require blueprints. That the blueprint copies will drop, and the production of the faction or officer weapon will require the faction weapon will require the Tech 2 module as a.
Oh, well, that's good. But right now, if you want to have a bunch of faction mods that you have sitting, like myself, maybe, like it's a pretty good thing to have the cheaper weapons, also using the Tech 2 ammo, because the Tech 2 ammo was a really big boot bonus for the Triglavian ships.
A really good point was made in chat. Ron USMC mentioned that Tech 2 guns require lots and lots of paste to repair. And in addition, on the same note, they are worse with heat damage. They tick.
Good to know.
Okay, so there's also electronic warfare drones. I'm going to leave that for Ashtarothi's detailed stuff, but check that out. So let's get to the other actual features that are coming out in this expansion. There is an agency redesign. And did you have some comments on that, Ash? Or Carneros?
My comment is, how many of us here in the chat have never even looked at the agency finder thing anyways?
Well, the new agency is incredible. The new agency has a lot of information that used to be very difficult to collect together and will be very good. So it has the new agent finder. It has new ways of finding faction warfare plexes. The PI interface is incredible. So I think that it's going to be a good thing. But honestly, it's one of those things that you should just go and play with it, either on Sissy or when it gets in Tranquility. It's a pretty good interface.
There's a bit of controversy regarding the agency redesign, though.
There was a scare, actually. There was a scare regarding Abyss and the agency, because when they on Singularity, when they first implemented the new agency window, they used old art, and the old art warned us about the suspect flag for Tier 4 and Tier 5. This old art has since been removed and is no longer in the Singularity Agency.
This is the curse of placeholder art.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of the whole exploration, sort of aspect of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
you
the
guys know
new
about this, right?
agency, yeah, the new agency thing, like people have been kind of bummed about it because they said, oh, it's taking the mystique out of exploring because you can see more sites without having to actually go there. If you're ratting, you can look in your thing, and if a signature pops up, you can say, oh, that's probably a wormhole, so let's go scout it and close it, or let's just make sure we don't all die, stuff like that. So a little bit of people are a little bit miffed about it. They made their opinions known when they first came to CC, and the developers were just like, yeah, we hear these, we hear what you're going to say, but let's try it out, see what happens. And another thing, people don't like a little bit of the agent finder because it does remove a little bit of functionality when it comes to looking for not probing agents, locator agents. It makes it a little bit harder to find those guys. But overall, it is a big upgrade too. Yeah, it makes the agency window, at least when it made it harder for me to find locator agents,
isn't it? Like, it should be easier to find those kinds of agents now.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'll take a look at it again. Maybe they changed a little bit, but they had removed, from when I had tried it, they removed a little bit of functionality. The agent finder right now, you can just click. It's really easy to find locators no matter where you are. And the agency, it was a little bit harder for me, but maybe I'm just dumb.
Well, there's been 2 iterations of the new agency on Sissy since it's shown up on Sissy. So it's possible that you actually tried the old new one.
Oh, nice. The old new and then the new. Like
the new.
Noisy Gamer explains it's only 12 agents that you could see max, and he wasn't too impressed with it, but it's worth checking out. I think everything going into the agency window is a good thing, because when new players come into the game, or seasoned MMO players that are transitioning into EVE Online are looking for things to do, you want that to be in one place as opposed to just trying to figure out where there are things to do.
With one glaring exception, yes.
What's the glaring exception?
Changes.
Say that again. Couldn't hear.
The signature changes.
Okay. And did we just discuss those now, or have those come up?
I think we danced around it, but
okay.
And I go into detail, or I think a little bit more detail in my breakdown, but the rough hand of it is that right now you can only see the signatures in your own system, and you have to scan them down to know what they are. In the new system, you're going to be able to see signatures basically anywhere in New Eden, just like faction warfare complexes and everything else like that. The reason why this is a big deal is because exploration is considered to be going into the unknown, and so the act of like bumbling around blindly is considered to be an integral part of exploration for a lot of explorers, and therefore being able to like go into null and then opening up and seeing where all of the signatures are in the local area removes a fair chunk of the discovery or exploration aspect of it. So a lot of people are upset.
Yeah. Okay, we'll leave a lot of that detail for your show, and we'll move on here to the next thing, which is really big. I just can't even express how big this is. We did save it for later in the show. We won't go into it long because we're going to talk about this long into the future. The 64-bit client option is here. It's here in its early form as an open beta. Yeah.
Now, it's not going to work perfectly. We know this. It's going to have bugs. There's going to be some moment when you're going to pull your hair out, or if you don't have any hair, you're going to pull your hat off. But but it also will be a huge godsend on occasion. You know, especially if you've got a system with a lot of memory on it, so you're resistant to memory leaks. You're going to be, I can't wait. I'm going to jump in immediately. Absolutely.
Now, Goody. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, for those that haven't tried it on the test server or anything like that, it actually is a massive, noticeable change in the performance in like these larger, even medium to large fights, not even extra large, right? So even in the 100 to 150 people fights, it is noticeably better in every aspect of it. I think there were like 400 people shooting a Keepstar, and I had everything on high effects, full everything. and it was working without breaking, right? Previously, we'd have to go into what Eve has like dubbed potato mode for everything, right?
Yeah.
So where you just turn all the settings all the way down and your ship looks like a potato. But now after this, if you do have the RAM and the ability to use it, it'll work really, really well. Obviously, if you're running 5 or 6 clients, probably don't want to do it on all of them. But
there's actually a second
I believe
change
this
to
is also
performance.
linked. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's a second increase in performance that a lot of people are not talking about that I actually think is going to be bigger, which is that they fixed something involving the level of detail for medium and far zooming areas. From my understanding, it read like something about decals or something like that. But basically, as you zoom out, it loads lower quality assets called level of detail. But if that's not happening as efficiently as it could, that would mean that when you're fully zoomed out and there's a lot of things to process, your GPU is having to process a lot more than it needs to. So with this fix, that's going to help anyone who plays with your thing zoomed out and lots of things going around. You're going to see a performance increase on your GPU for this alone.
And this is going to be linked as well to the integration of DirectX 12 technology, which will grant us performance increases as well as graphics quality increases, and will allow the art team to begin building art that is designed for DirectX.
So the grand takeaway is that you're gonna be able to see EVE Online with the high graphics in tense situations where a lot of things are happening. And the best example we've seen of this, because McLeod and Ron USMC, as part of TIS, we did both tests and we streamed those live. And it was amazing, the detail and the proximity of the camera right up against those ships, right up against those cannons as they're firing from one dreadnought to a Titan. It really puts EVE Online in a different perspective for people who are going to be watching this happen live. Even in these big, big fights, that's going to be a game changer I think, for people watching the game as it happens.
Yeah, it is incredibly significant. It's not just like it's a little tweaky thing that might break. No, it's a big, significant change. And someone had asked, is this going to break my CPU like Incarnate did when it first came out? I mean, I've tested it 2 times. I can't say for certain that it's not going to break stuff, but I'm pretty sure it's in a really good spot. At the first time I tested it, I had one client running 16 gigs of RAM, which obviously they didn't really like. So they put a hard cap on it. I don't remember what it is. CCB Antiquarian tweeted about it, and I think he mentioned it on EVE Pulse as well, that they put a hard cap in how much it can use. So it's not going to eat every inch of RAM that you have. You won't have to download more RAM, don't worry. But it does make a we aren't like trying to overstate it. It does make a significant change in how pretty EVE looks and how much of it you can see during these big fleet fights with these big graphics going around.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that you can see some of the graphics. Those are live graphics, live combat. It is a test server, so none of that's counted, but you can just see what's out there. And, you're running max graphics with explosions, with effects, and you're able to zoom the camera in and out. It's just a completely different visualization of what people are used to when a big battle happens in EVE Online. And personally, I'm extremely excited about that.
But they didn't roll it out as part of the expansion. Instead, they rolled it out as an opt-in beta as part of the alongside the expansion. And that should be noted, that they feel like it does require additional testing, or there are some issues that need to be sorted still.
Well, I wanted to zero in on that specifically, because let's also look at what the release of the 64-bit client represents. They said that when the 64-bit client is released, then the 32-bit client will be deprecated and removed. So consider this beta period the opportunity for both of them to be working in tandem with each other. So that's, in my opinion, that's the biggest difference for the beta. Not that it's going to be necessarily any more buggy than the other side, but that they're just giving it a chance, because everybody remembers what happens when they just switch the chat system from one to another without letting you go back. So, let's let them run in tandem with each other for a little bit. And when the 64-bit client proves itself, then the 32-bit client will be shuttered.
Yeah, and I like this point here by NN Quantum. So 64-bit client will make skins worthwhile. I think that is an interesting point. And I hope it's true. I hope people start really getting into skins because you can finally see them. They'll finally make a difference.
That's a DirectX 12 thing as well. Like they're going to be able to build stuff that takes advantage.
Yeah. All right. Let's we're over on time already, but we're going to go a little long today because it is an expansion episode. So let's talk about another big deal, and that is War Deck changes. This is the fourth part, or part 4, the final part of War Deck changes that started a few months ago. And this time they're going to have war headquarters are going to pop up. We'll talk about that. War cost simplification, 100 million per war, flat fee. Improved mutual wars and war UI improvements. Okay, guys, how big is this like now? Because it seems like War Decks kind of slowly fell off the radar. Everybody was super hot to make changes to this, and now we're here. This is the completion of those changes. What do we think?
It's a definite improvement. I think I always have like a really fond memory of when they were, or the dev blog, and when they were explaining it. I think it was also an Eve Pulse video, which is always good to watch. They had like the War Deck formula, the cost for the formula, and it's like the super mathy looking formula, right? Like I don't know how else to say it. It looks like hardcore math. And then they just put like an X through it, and we're like 100. Like that's the new one that we're gonna do. Easy. It's just 100. There you go. That's fine. So
not only was it super complicated, but it actually benefited bigger alliances. The bigger you were, the more expensive it was to war deck you, which ultimately didn't help.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter.
Who are the winners and losers of this change?
So the zeroing in on the summary of this is basically this allows the people being attacked by a war an opportunity to have an objective of their own. Right now, if you're under a war deck or if you're being attacked by somebody, really all you can do is hide, run, or nowadays defend your structure. This allows you to at least have a counterattack goal. If I can somehow take down this structure, which I know is in high sec and I've been given the location of, then I can end my war and force them to not be able to war me for at least another 2 weeks. So this is, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it's necessarily going to be as moment-to-moment impactful as, say, the December war deck changes, but this definitely makes the war deck system into a fully robust system of play and counterplay.
Isn't it... okay, let me put it in simple terms. If one group decides they want to war another and they pay the 100 million bill, which is not much for certain groups, and it's basically like somebody pushing somebody around until they fight back, isn't it?
Well, both sides will have to have a structure in space, so you kind of you know what you're getting into when you anchor something.
The defenders, well, no, he has to have someone in space, but you don't have to have a war headquarters.
Correct. Yes. So you know what you're getting into when you start anchoring structures, in my opinion.
So
but
that's when you're saying, I'm up for this gameplay, basically.
Correct. As long as you have no structures as your organization, then you're basically saying, I don't want to be harassed by wars.
Okay. But you also don't get any of the benefits that structures have to offer. You don't get to make your home in space.
There are ways around it.
Right?
I mean, the way around it is just have an alt corp drop the structure and then just let you give you access to the access limit.
But the alt corp can get war decked just as easily as
exactly.
So
But the alt
counterplay though.
The alt corp gets war decked, but then your members don't have to be like, oh, I can't go to Jita ever again, like, right? Because that's the mentality is right now. If you've ever been in a small corp, and I've snuck like little characters in the small corps, getting war decked 8 months ago, it was basically like, well, we can't play this week, so everyone leave this corp and join another corp. And this isn't hyperbole. This isn't me making stuff up. Like, this is actually what they do, and it's not just this one group. This is what a lot of these like high sec groups do. Like, oh geez, guys, we're war decked, so we're going to move to this corp, and here's what you do. And they have these plans in place. They've been doing it for years. They're like, okay, so we're moving to this corp. It's a similar enough name that you have an identity, but different enough where the guys might not see it. So we're just going to waste their time, and in 2 days you guys can play again. And that's literally just how it goes. And it just, every time that happens, if a guy that isn't around, he wakes up to a corp that there were 40 people in the last time he was in. Now there's 0 people. He's like, what do I do? And if there's no one around, that guy just isn't in that corp anymore. And he generally just stops playing. So eventually, like, these war decks just take a grind and a toll on these people that have small social circles that are primarily in high sec, because like 1 or 2 guys leave each time they swap corpse, and maybe they swap 5 or 6 times. Like if you, it literally kills me too, because I'm the type of person that I don't like when my bio has like a lot of fluff in it, or my corp history has a lot of fluff in it.
Yeah.
Like, I hate that. I absolutely hate it. I will not leave a corp just so I don't get that one line item.
I know what you
like
mean.
being an NPC corp. And like, if you look at my alt, I've got 16 entries and it's been playing for less than a year. It's absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a huge boost to that type of gameplay, which is really nice to see.
I think it's important what you said about you get to keep your same culture. I think that's a very important thing. Carneros, I cut you off. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's another winner, and it's CCP, because they get to have an interesting data point now. They get to look at the statistics over the next 6 months and see what percentage of wars in high sec, what percentage of Empire wars does someone actually go and attack the headquarters, and what percentage of the time does the headquarters actually get blown up. So they're gonna get some useful data out of this over the next few months, and I'd like us to hold CCP to reporting on that data at some point in the future.
They showed us, they showed us the numbers before all these war deck changes were made. They showed us the engagement numbers and all those things, and how no fights really happen, and the defenders never get any kills. So we know they're collecting it. We just hope they show us the numbers if they're not what they hope.
Well, they're collecting it now. They weren't collecting it 10 years ago. So it's great that they're looking at it now. Absolutely.
My top question from this change is, what's going to happen to Solitude? So Solitude is a high sec chunk of high sec that's completely separated from the rest of high sec. So it's very difficult for a lot of organizations to maybe set up there, but it is technically high sec. So I wonder whether or not organizations like Pirate will start using it as like a launching point in order to kind of protect their structures from harassment, or if other people are going to do that, or if people are going to make a job of clearing the war structures that happen to be in Solitude. It'll be very interesting to see if Solitude plays into this whole thing, just because of the rules behind the war headquarters.
Well, and how have the mercenary groups that go around hunting, corporations, how have they reacted to these changes?
Amusingly. Like, they don't really know what to do. Like, they've been war decking each other. They've been going after other people. They've been merging. I haven't really paid enough attention to have a solid answer, but it looks like all kinds of different stuff is happening among the war deck community.
The answer is that the new meta is emerging and will continue to do so for some.
Yeah, well, we did have someone from Pirates or Pirate, whatever the way you say it. There you go, McLeod. You're proving it right again.
Yes.
They were on a show with Talking in Stations with Artemis and Ron and Silver a few weeks ago. You can check that out. So they were talking about how they were making adjustments and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. These changes are interesting. They seem like a good fix. I think a lot of them came out of the community, the players. A lot of the suggestions that looks like CCP took, I'd heard before from players. Doesn't it seem that way to you guys?
It does seem like that, but it also seems like they had a few ideas that have been sitting on the drawing board for quite a while, things that they wanted to implement that they didn't necessarily have the ability to at the time. So that should be interesting. I mean, I think the biggest change, which is something that's already in the game, right, is the removal of neutral assistance. It's like, if you do that, that was just like a huge part of how the war deck kind of meta had twisted on itself, right? So the main use of war deck was groups like Marmite and Pirate. They would just they would just war deck a bunch of people. They'd sit in Jita and just kill people. And these people there's no counterplay to what they'd do. If they started to lose, they'd tank up or undock neutral logi, rep up, and then just dock again. So there was a lot of it just struck people as like, well, I can't even compete. But now with all these changes, it does seem like sometimes competing will be hard. Maybe Pirate will shove all their structures and and their headquarters in the Solitude pocket, as Ashravi was saying, and just hell camp that low sec to get there, and it'll still be hard. But it does actually make it seem like you can do something now. Before there was a sense of helplessness, like I can't do anything, I'm defeated. And now it does, with all these changes, it definitely makes it seem like, okay, there's a path to me getting out of this mess, right? So I'm not necessarily going to just sulk. Maybe it's a hard path, maybe it's a path up a hill both ways, and I'm not going to be able to achieve it, but at least I do have some semblance of hope.
Right. Ash, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say about the community thing that the war deck community has really come together in the last year, even before CCP decided to do anything about it and started doing their own war deck panels and stuff like that. And there's been a lot of really good organization. Special thanks to Jinton as a CSM member for backing it up and continuing to beat on this drum for over a year, coming together as a community, several panels, lots of discussions. This was a thing that was highly controversial. Obviously, there were people on both sides of the issue that had very staunch opinions about it. So it was a tricky thing to sort out. But I think that the community really came up with a lot of solid ideas, and I'm happy that CCP took some of the best ones.
Yeah, so those are war decks. They're changing. This is the fourth and final chapter in those changes, and then we will see probably at the end of summer sometime what the statistics are and how that has either improved the situation or made new problems. So we'll check that out later on. We're coming to the end here. We have one last change that is a significant change for new players, and a lot of people are very excited about this, and that is the pointer tool. Who knows what this tool does, and can you describe it?
This is a really big one. This is I can now point to things on your screen, and I don't have to say, hey, you know the hamburger menu that's kind of to the left of this one, but a little bit over there, and maybe it looks like this, or maybe you've moved it somewhere else. Well, go through that and then click this other thing, and then this other thing. I can just point.
Yeah, and you how do you get the link to them for them to activate it? Sorry, the pointer. I had a spoiler in my own sentence.
So essentially there's this little window that has a list of all the pointers that you can have, and you just drag and drop into a chat channel or anywhere you want to, or an email or anything like that. If you've ever done the tutorial in the last 4 or 5 years, you've probably seen some things that are very similar to it. Like the tutorial would say, hey, click this, and it would put like a big circle around it and point to it. And that's kind of similar to what this does. And the idea came about, I believe someone from eVegas, either this most recent eVegas or one before that, had gone to like a panel and said, hey, this would be really, really cool if we could have this. And a team at CCP were like, oh, okay, you actually want this? I can, like, we have the ability to do that. Let me do that. And I think CCP Karker posted about it a few months ago when it was first in beta, say, hey, guys, this is what we did based on feedback. Is this what you like? And everyone, especially in new player organizations, were like, oh, holy crap. I don't have to like describe what the neocom is, or I don't have to say what these vertical lines are. I can now just link it. You can click it no matter where you moved it on your screen, because that was a big problem. People would like just move their screen around. I can just click it. I can send it to you. You can click it, and it'll show you where it is. So you kind of know what I'm talking about. So it does make the learning curve a lot less steep. It flattens it out a bit.
One of the things that I think this brings to mind is Seamus, who is from the Eve Uni, right? Eve University group. And he has classes like every Tuesday where he'll take all questions from all players about mechanics. And he is encyclopedic with his memory And one of the things that's fascinating about him is that he is so exact that he could, with very little effort, direct you to the place you needed to go. Like he's very trained in the language of, okay, turn this down this way, and he could get you to where you needed to go. It's such a talent, and I just feel like this is going to help him so much more because he can now just drop a link and say, there, touch that.
What's more is that this isn't only a one-on-one or class-based on-the-spot tool. You can include these links in a channel message of the day, and it's like, join this channel to learn how to do this thing, and click these links and it'll show you. And you don't actually have to have a person sending it to you. They can just be.
The other thing I like is that it functions as just a list of everything that there is in the game to interact with. I guarantee you that at least one person will find Project Discovery because of this.
Also, I think the one use that I hope happens, and people have been kind of memeing about it in Twitch chat. I hope someone burns a spy in NC Dot to just link the undock button in a fleet, or like the undock pointer in the fleet. That would be totally worth, like, if you had like a 3-year deep spy at NC Dot or anything like that. I think that would just be hilarious. So go do that, please. For the memes, it would be good.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
All right. I think that we're coming to the end of the program, and we were going to show you some footage of how that works, but you'll be able to see it soon enough. It's coming into the game. It's here. We didn't know when it was going to drop. Now we do. It's happening just 2 days from now. So that's going to be great. And yeah, I want to agree with Sikander Cole that Seamus is amazing. He's one of the most amazing players in this game. All right. Do you guys have anything else that you can't let go? Something you want to talk about?
I just want to thank you all for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Welcome to the crew. You're now part of Talking in Stations. You're a resident Abyssal expert. Welcome, Fonsui. It's nice to have you here.
I really hope to contribute and bring something to the team.
I will say that if you have been wanting to, or interested, or not even, or whatever, thinking about the Abyss, but have been too intimidated by looking at fits or figuring things out, Fonsui is the person to go to. He's got tons of great ideas, and he's got all kinds of fits for all kinds of situations, and he's more than willing to break down a brand new fit just to fit your crazy idea. Trust me, I know.
We also invite you guys after the show to pile into public channel where all these guys that were on the show spill out into, and then we all kind of take questions and hang out and talk about EVE Online, even after the show is over. And I'll put a link to that right now.
Because we just love it so darn much.
It's a community, man.
Is there anything, Carneros, that you want to talk about before we go?
No, I'm excited. I want to jump into fleets this afternoon, but I do think we should show the EVE Online invasion trailer. That'd be great.
We will. We're going to actually let that play us out today as a change from our normal exit. But first, at least, is there anything that you wanted to plug or say?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the Triglavians are going to mess with our stuff. I'm really excited to add that level of uncertainty back into EVE, that level of chaos. I'm very, very stoked. Also, I love NC. You don't have to be mad. I'm just trying to make sure goons burn all their spies by being Mimi. I'm just trying to help you. Come on. Let's let it play.
The meta.
Yeah, I'm playing 4D chess here.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this trailer real quick. Did you guys like it? Thumbs up, thumbs down in this trailer?
My favorite guy is Tristan Guy. I don't know who he is. Tristan Guy is the best guy. He's got the best lines. He flies like everyone you've ever flown with in EVE. He's a complete idiot, but I love him.
It got me fired up, but it's not the gameplay.
Yeah.
Antiquarian is Tristan Guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense now. X up, guys. If you like it, give a thumbs up, thumbs down on the trailer. I know a lot of people were very excited when it came out. They were saying so in public, and we watched it come out at Eve Down Under when we were watching the stream.
Everyone knows a Tristan guy.
And if you don't know, and if you, by the way, and if you don't know Tristan guy, like a Tristan guy, it's because you're the Tristan guy.
Okay.
You said thermal.
I want to thank Ashtarothi, Carneros, Elise, Fonsui, and McLeod, our engineer, for hanging out and showing up today. I also want to thank all the generosity that happened today. It's Apollo 428 and XY, and it just went nuts. So thank you guys for helping out the station that way. Appreciate it. Catch more stuff. We have a ton coming out, including CSM interviews with candidates that you may want to vote for. So check that out too. Thanks again, everyone, for hanging around, and you can hang out with us. Oh, more generosity. Thanks, Apollo 428. Hang out with us in public chat the rest of this afternoon. Thank you guys very much. And that's all there is today. We will see you next time on Talking in Stations.
Run this pocket, but the gate's open. That's not possible. Come on, follow me. There's gonna be something up ahead. All right. Did anyone see that? Yep. Let's get closer and have a look. Maybe we should just head back to the gate. Like, we could do a different filament. Come on, don't be a wuss. Is that something up ahead there? Yep, there's definitely something up ahead. Let's get a little bit closer. Well done. Oh my god. This is ridiculous. Look at that. That's a lot of ships. Guys? We are definitely running. Oh shit, I have implants in this car.